remember how Kail Lowry announced on her podcast at some point last week or the week before that she was going to be getting her neck chopped off because she's sick and tired of having a double chin. According to Kail, double chins run in her family. And so the only way for her to get hers under control is to go and have it surgically removed. And this was in a very kind of like disturbing episode of the Coffee Convos podcast, because listen, her going to get like a neck lift, neck chop off, whatever you want to call it, it's one thing. She's a grown woman with grown woman coins who could do whatever she wants. However, in this particular episode of the show, she was talking about how the doctor told her that the operation that she was doing for her neck situation would only last about 20 years in terms of the results before she would need to potentially do it over again. And Kail says, right, as she's got a bunch of toddlers at home, well, that's fine because I was actually hoping to croak in 20 years. And then Lindsay, her podcast co-host, says, Kail, what do you mean you're hoping to die in 20 years? Don't you have like little kids at home? Like, aren't some of your children even like 1 year old or something like that? Like, wouldn't they only be like 20 years old in 20 years? And then Kail says, well, it doesn't matter because I'm worth more to them dead than alive. And then not only that, but she goes on to talk about how she really hopes that her daughter isn't built like her. And she says that people are starting to point out to her that her daughter is big boned like her, quote unquote. Right. And then she kind of points out the fact that her daughter, according to her, is bow-legged. Like it turns into like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I don't like the way I look. Oh, my God, my daughter's starting to look like me. Look at all these flaws. Like it was a very, very weird episode of the show. And the kind of like flippant way of saying that you hope you croak when you've got a bunch of little kids and you're talking about wanting to have more. It is so strange. Right. So anyway, that is me setting the stage for you guys in regards to this particular story. So now fast forward to Kail Lowry showing us some photos from her getting marked up for the operation. So these are some of the markings that the doctor put on her face prior to putting her under anesthesia, right? And so, you know, a lot of people are wondering if that's all she had done, the whole neck double chin situation, because people are saying, wait a minute, the markings that the doctor put on her go all the way up to like her temple almost. Are we sure she's not getting a facelift? Like, is this not just like a little neck tightening, or is this a full-blown facelift, right? So that's what you see in the comment section. A lot of people kind of debating over that. I personally do not know. I went online to look up the markings of facelift and whatnot, and they kind of vary. I looked at the markings of a neck lift, and it is true that they typically end here. But again, that kind of varies as well. So I really do not know. Are any of you guys in the medical field, especially in plastics? What do you think about the way that Kail's face has been marked up? What is this indicative of? You know, so I'm seeing some comments coming in. We've got Ash and Emmy who says that this looks like a facelift. Ali says this is a jump scare that should be censored. We've got Shauna who says that it is a facelift as well. And Laura, just you wait, boo. We're going to get into that. I do think that, you know, they had a little bit of a hookup. I think at least the tip went in. But we're going to get into that later. That's another story that we've got. So there was another photo that Kail released in her kind of carousel of her, quote unquote, saying goodbye to the double chin. I will say, though, in this one particular photo, if I didn't know any better, I would think that this was kind of like an elderly woman. Right. So I don't know, like if she feels like she needs to snatch it up, maybe she'll just go ahead and snatch it up. At the end of the day, it is her coin. But it is sad that, you know, she's in this place at such a young age. She's only 33 years old. Right. But I do think that when you are paralyzing your facial muscles for the past decade or so and then plumping your face with filler and whatnot, these things can cause you to age at an unnatural rate. And that could be what we're seeing in her right here, right? Because people always say Botox is preventative. I do think it is to an extent, but at the same time, when you paralyze a muscle so much, it can sag also, right? And then fillers, when you get tired of those, what happens when they dissolve and you're not pumping them up? Or maybe when you dissolve them, you know, mechanically, you have all this space that was previously stretched out that has nowhere to go but down. So these could be the things that have caused her issues, right? So I really don't exactly know what exactly it is that Kail has had done. However, she said it's about to be game over for us all as soon as she has fully healed. And so I did see a really interesting comment here. I'm trying to find it again. So sorry about that. Sometimes that does happen, you guys, where I do see comments and I want to talk about them and call out to them, but then I lose them. But here it is. This is Steph. Stephanie says some facial lipo too. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if she went and got some facial contouring, by way of liposuction. Maybe she's even going to get some fat transfers to certain areas, right? I think she likes to fill her cheeks. So why not take some of this extra fat that you don't need and put it in your cheeks, right? Or maybe even fill it in your temple. That's what a lot of people like to do these days. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if that was something that she was looking into doing, right? It's kind of like naturally like contouring yourself so that you don't have to do the whole contour makeup anymore or something like that, right? Jasmine says maybe it's threading, like Lisa Barlow from The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Lisa Barlow, I still can't get over her gout D sucker comment. That was insane. Maybe it's that, but facial threading looks so painful. Do they need to map it out though? I don't know, but that stuff looks painful. It looks gruesome, absolutely gruesome, you guys. Wow. I still do not understand the popularity of that stuff, but I do digress. Bree says, yeah, but she's been pregnant the past decade. She can't do Botox pregnant. But she does talk quite a bit about dye sport and stuff like that. I do remember her talking about it relatively, recently on the podcast. She did say that due to breastfeeding and whatnot, she had to stop for a while. But in between these pregnancies, she is getting that stuff done. Acacia says, Kail, love yourself. And I agree, right? Hey, Hamlet. Hamlet says, oh my God, I am... Ooh, and then it cuts off. Bree says the threads ruin your face. I think so too. Like, don't they lead to certain rippling? Sometimes you see people who get that they do the rippling here, especially. Cammy says it sounds like she doesn't want to be a mom anymore because she thinks her kids would be better off with her. DEAD. Well, that's what it kind of sounds like. It sounds like she's going through depression again, right? And maybe she doesn't know it yet, or maybe she's in denial about it. But, that episode of the show was extremely disturbing in my humble opinion. So amidst all of these photos that Kail shared of herself being marked up for the procedure, she did also share a photograph of one of her children with Elijah being held up by Elijah. I believe this is Rio. And, I just wanted to point that out to you guys. It seems as though maybe they're on good terms at this present moment in their lives, which is good, right? For the children involved. Obviously, I do not believe they're back together. Kail is rumored to be with a new man, a man who has a certain affinity for fishing. But it's nice to see that these two are on good terms and able to hang out with the kids together. But here's something that's a little bit interesting to me. Does the roof or the ceiling of this room that Elijah's in kind of look like it could be the ceiling of like a medical place? So then it kind of makes me wonder, was Elijah there to kind of like watch the kids or something? I don't know. And is that not like medical equipment behind him? Was he there? Do you think that there might secretly be something going on between these two? I don't know about a romantic reconciliation because, again, I don't believe that Kail was ever truly in love with this person. However, the ceiling and the devices behind him are giving medical office, right? So I don't know, you guys. I'm just putting up the other pictures back again so that I could look a little bit closer and see if any of the equipment matches, what was next to Elijah in his particular photo. So, I'm seeing some medical equipment here, but it's not the same ones. But I'm seeing the same kind of gray, cabinetry, etc., that you see in Elijah's photo. So I do now, and this is just something that I'm thinking about now, looking at it over and discussing it with you guys. But I am currently of the belief that Elijah was there somewhere. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about that? Let me know in the live chat. I'm just taking a closer look, you guys. Something's off. But at the same time, why would you bring kids with you to the hospital or wherever this is to get, plastic surgery, especially if you got a father, who's able to watch over them? Why would you do that? Maybe it's a different medical office that he was in with the kid, but something about that kind of just pinged the radar for me. I'm going to take a look at what you guys have to say in the live chat. Okay, so let's go ahead and see what y'all have to say about that. It looks like some of you do think that there was an Elijah appearance at the hospital. We've got Kristen who says Chris was on live the other day saying she already moved her new guy into the house. So it's official. Listen, I think that's the guy that she might have bought the Jeep for. There's a guy that Chris says has been tailing him or stalking him or something like that. She says that that's her new man. And, we suspect that that man his Jeep that he rolls around in was purchased by Kail. Diane says, I believe bow legs could be fixed when a child is very young. If I'm right, she may not have had it done, as so many babies take care of, not meant to be judgmental. Yeah, exactly. Like, I think it's very natural for kids to be bow-legged, right? They're learning to walk and they just kind of like wobble around like that naturally. And then typically it shapes itself out, right? Good morning, Shonda. Nice to see you. Ronnie says, that's creepy, looking at all the lines on her face. Honestly, the whole thing is just so nerve-wracking. Laura says, she can't have any guy without bringing them around for plastic surgeries, right? Come with me to the clinic or the hospital so I know it's real. Steph says, Elijah and Kail are in too deep to completely cut ties. They're still using one another. And I do think that that is the case as well. Like, that guy really has always been the primary parent for the children that they have together. And he's also been a great help to the 4 older ones that Kail has. So, I do think that there is a certain reason why, even though he cheated on her and she was never truly, from what we've heard on the podcasts, in love with him, there's a reason why she keeps him around nonetheless. Hey, Ashley, better late than never. Indeed, I overslept, but went to see the Backstreet Boys last night. So much fun. Wow, I'm glad you had a great concert. Nice. What's your favorite Backstreet Boys song? I'm trying to remember. Is that You Are My? I still remember the episode they did on Arthur. That was groundbreaking to me. Absolutely amazing. Susan said it could be a different office. Yeah, it very well could be, right? But it's just so interesting that, that's the picture that she used. It got my tin foil hat going. Deshauna says that looks like an old photo from a doctor's appointment with Rio, right? Something medical going on, but probably not the same location, because it really truly does not make sense to bring the child to the hospital for you just getting plastic surgery. That's just weird. And I don't think that Kail is that kind of weird. Bree says Kailin probably had them there. I don't know, you guys. Very, very interesting.